Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, with a little over a week to go before their general election, Kenyans are questioning the credibility of the management of the voting process. Their marches in Nairobi calling for fair polls in the wake of the murder and torture of the man who'd been in charge of the new electronic voting system. Also, although thousands of undocumented Ethiopians working in Saudi Arabia have rushed home for the end of an extended amnesty, authorities in Addis say many still haven't come back, and those who stayed behind could face prison time. And in Singapore, we meet some of the design team at French gaming giant Ubisoft, who are tempted over from Ivory Coast and Morocco by the promise of working in the big leagues of the video gaming industry. We've turned first to Kenya, where with just 1 week to go before general elections, protesters marched on the offices of the Electoral Commission on Tuesday to protest against the killing of its IT systems chief, who had been in charge of the electronic voting system. Now, Chris Msandu and a 21-year-old student called Carol Gumbu were murdered in Nairobi over the weekend. Msandu had been tortured before his death. Now, the upcoming presidential race between incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta and opposition leader Raila Odinga is a close one. Some demonstrators fear that Msandu's murder was meant to hurt the transparency of the vote. Well, Julia Steers joins us now with more. Julia, so there was a lot of effort put into setting up a new voting system in the run-up to next week. How much has Msandu's killing undermined trust in that process?
Well, the chairman of the Electoral Commission here has said that all systems are still in place. The electronic tallying system will be tested tomorrow and will work next week. But in terms of the trust that people here have in the system, it's a huge setback. For Kenyans on both sides of the political divide, this issue of a free and fair election is really the key decider of whether or not there will be post-election violence. And opposition candidate Raila Odinga has really set people on edge by consistently charging that these elections will not be free and fair. He's even gone so far as to set up his own tallying station outside of the country. And that's really, his rhetoric has really have people worried that things here could tip into violence. So given this tension was already in place, then this gruesome murder over the last few days of this person who was in charge of the technology behind the results tallying, it's a huge setback in terms of people's confidence in the election and in terms of their fear about the aftermath.
So you mentioned there that Raila Odinga, in the run-up to next week, had already been expressing his concerns about the transparency of the vote. With Msandu's murder specifically, what's he had to say about that? And also, what's Kenyatta been saying in his camp?
So the incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta has promised a swift investigation, and he's asked people to stop speculating about what could have been behind this murder. Now, Odinga has taken the completely opposite route, and he's really used this to feed into his narrative that the system is rigged and that if he loses, it will be because of foul play. So the IEBC has assured the public that they have the right passwords. Everything will go on as planned next week. But the US, the UK, and the EU monitoring team that is in place here have all expressed their concern over the last few days that this is a bad indication of things that could potentially come at the polls next week.
Thanks very much. Julia Steers there for us in Nairobi. In other news, the UK is investigating British American Tobacco for allegedly paying bribes in East Africa. A corruption probe's been launched nearly 2 years after the emergence of allegations that BAT handed over cash to officials in countries, including Rwanda and Burundi, in a bid to undermine anti-smoking laws. Around 70 African migrants crossed into the Spanish enclave of Ceuta on Tuesday after hundreds rushed the razor wire fence separating it from northern Morocco. In the first half of this year, around 3,200 migrants entered Spain via Ceuta or the autonomous Spanish city of Melilla, which is also in North Africa. Now, although thousands of undocumented Ethiopians working in Saudi Arabia have rushed home for the end of an extended amnesty, authorities in Addis say many still haven't come back. Those who've stayed behind could now be deported or even face prison time. Nicola Chemin has the story.
Many of the Ethiopians currently arriving at Addis Ababa airport have come from Saudi Arabia. The Saudi government said illegal workers should leave or face arrest. It says some 400,000 Ethiopians work illegally in the country. The aim is to reduce unemployment for Saudis, but they often shun the low-paid jobs carried out by Ethiopians.
They don't have any sympathy for maids. They don't even consider us as human beings. They don't think we can ever get tired. This makes you hate your life. Wanting to at least have some savings to send back home, that is what makes you endure everything.
Human rights organizations have criticized Gulf countries for the treatment of foreign workers. There have been numerous cases of sexual assault and of salaries having been withheld. The Ethiopian government vows to help those who have returned home.
The government has some revolving fund to provide an opportunity for our nationals, for the youth in the country, to create job opportunities, so on and so forth. So our nationals who are repatriated from Saudi Arabia will be part of this initiative.
Ethiopia has a fast-growing economy, but a third of its 100 million inhabitants live on less than $2 a day, according to the World Bank. Some returning migrants say they'll have to go to another country.
Even now, I plan to go to a different country. How can I sit here idle? I have a lot of expenses to cover, and I have to feed these children, provide clothes, educate them, and pay rent. How can I cover all this here?
This is not the first time these mass expulsions have taken place. In 2013, Saudi Arabia had already forced out 100,000 Ethiopians, saying it would boost Saudi employment.
Well, back to Kenya, where East Africa's largest retailer is in increasing danger of shutting up shop. The Nakumatt brand's been losing branches ever since getting into financial difficulty with suppliers. Sharon Gaffney tells us more.
It's the largest retailer in East Africa and has become one of the best-known brands in Kenya. Established 25 years ago, the Nakumatt supermarket chain was, until recently, a Kenyan success story. But the retailer's iconic elephant is now overseeing a steady decline, which is being blamed on bad management, misguided expansion and increased competition. The company's woes began with a terror attack on Nairobi's Westgate Mall in September 2013. It left 67 people dead and destroyed the firm's flagship store, which accounted for 10% of its turnover.
This has been a perfect storm, ranging from fire, flood of stores to terrorism in a store, and in addition to that, the shrinking of the economy.
Wholesalers and commercial landlords are running out of patience. Unpaid bills have left many suppliers demanding payment up front or refusing to deliver products. Several branches of the outlet have closed their doors after getting into rental arrears with landlords. The business still employs 7,000 people and has 45 stores in Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda and Tanzania, with annual sales of just over €500 million.
We are very confident that the processes we're going through in terms of seeking new investment and debt recovery is going to work very well for us.
But industry insiders warn that the damage to the retailer is so severe it may not survive.
Now, although the African video games industry is picking up pace with more and more studios springing up, designers and engineers from the continent are still being tempted abroad by established heavyweights. Well, our team in Singapore went to the offices of French games giant Ubisoft to meet members of the team there who headed over from Ivory Coast and Morocco.
After Abidjan and Paris, Emmanuel Yao now lives in Singapore. He manages a team of fellow engineers, and in a video games company, office life is very different.
The world of video games is rather relaxed. It's about intelligence, no matter how you look or dress. The challenge is to bring all these different skills together and to work well.
Cameras are rarely allowed in the Ubisoft studios. These computer screens could reveal secrets on the projects in the making. The French giant sells millions of copies a year, and art director Mohamed Gambous is behind one of the most successful games, Assassin's Creed. The Moroccan is a star in the business. He and Emmanuel Yao are among the first Africans who rose through the ranks of top video game companies. The Ubisoft manager believes internet is a real game changer for the new generations looking to follow their dreams.
People can go on the internet to follow classes and choose careers. We didn't have that chance back in 1987. Now it's all democratized, with information available to all.
He is sure he will one day leave Asia and return to Ivory Coast. He wants to share his experience of working in a high-tech company. His plan is to open a school to help young Africans become the next big video game designers.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us. Do so again. Take care.